Today, we are talking about my money story. This episode is going to be super raw, super vulnerable. I am nervous. I've never shared this. It's going to be deep. And I was thinking about this today and everything I was going to share, and it got me emotional because this is my story. This is my why. And it's deep. So let's get into it. So to start, money kept me stuck for a long time. And you may notice like tears throughout and emotions because this is like real. This is raw. This is vulnerable. This is deep. So stay until the end if you want to hear the whole story. So money kept me stuck. It ruled my entire life. And this is why I'm building the movement that I'm building. This is why I'm building a community of self-made millionaires. So stay until the entire end if you want to hear the entire story. So everyone has a story with money based on their upbringing, based on their experiences. And as a result, they have a story that tells them what is possible for them in relation to money, how it works for them, and how it does not work for them. Just like how you are in a relationship with everything in your life. And I'm going to share my story with money. And you're going to notice I'm going to be pausing. I'm going to be taking breaths because there's a lot of emotions here. I share throughout my Instagram. I share on different socials. I made this money. I did this. Because there's so much more to it. It goes so much deeper. It's freedom. It's releasing shame. It's releasing guilt that kept me stuck for so long. So, to start, when I was 18 years old, my family had to sell our family home. It was one of the most painful things I've ever gone through. It was so traumatizing. I can't even explain it to you. I was 18, so when you're younger, you can't comprehend situations, right? And so one moment I felt like things were going well. I had my own room. I was living this great life. And then the next moment, my family lost our home. We had to sell things. We had to move. And I experienced so much shame and guilt. I took this on. I felt like it was my fault. I felt responsible for my family losing our home. And I had severe trauma. I felt scared with money. I was in fear. And as a result of that, I went off to college and I started numbing myself with alcohol. I started numbing myself with food. I can't even explain it. I can literally feel the fear. I no longer have fear with money, but I'm explaining the story. I was so scared with money to the point I couldn't even spend $1 or like $2 going to Starbucks. I was so scared. I would call my uncle at the time and I would say to him, am I going to lose everything? Am I going to lose everything? I was stuck in fear, survival mode. And losing everything became my biggest fear. So as a result of that, like I mentioned, I ended up drinking to numb myself. To be honest, alcohol never really helped me. So I just kind of dropped alcohol. I ended up having a horrible relationship with food. I would either not eat because I couldn't eat, or I would emotional eat. It wasn't a good relationship. Like I mentioned, I couldn't spend on anything. I was so fearful. I was so scared to look at my bank account. So I just avoided it. And I created an avoidant relationship with money. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, whether you're watching Instagram Live or you're on my podcast or YouTube, you're in relationship with everything in your life. And so I created an avoidant relationship with money. And I thought, okay, well, I'm so scared that I'm going to lose everything because my family had to sell our home that I'm just not going to look at my bank account because I don't want to feel those feelings of shame and guilt because I took that on. And so I figured if I just ignore it, then it'll just go away and I won't have to feel this uncomfortableness. And so that continued. I remember I would always call my uncle. My uncle lived in Boston and he was really a huge supporter for me because I felt like I couldn't go to my family and tell them like, hey, I have so much shame and guilt. You guys lost our home. I remember I was blaming my parents. I'm one of 4, and my siblings didn't experience the same thing as me. And I want you all to know, if you have siblings, you can experience different things. You can have different perceptions of experiences. So my siblings didn't experience the same trauma. Like they were okay. Sure, they had like fear about money, but I literally took this on. I literally was like, I have shame and guilt that my family lost their home. I'm embarrassed. I also remember I grew up in Foster City near the Bay Area, in the Bay Area, and I remember feeling so embarrassed because there were other families around me that like did well financially. And so I remember literally thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be accepted. People are going to judge me. I don't now come from a wealthy family. This is so embarrassing. I have so much shame. I have so much guilt. And so I literally remember just like having so much shame and guilt. The only thing I knew how to do was not look at my bank account and literally just perform, achieve, be a perfectionist. And so that continued on. And I remember I graduated college and I was 22. And I remember I traveled around Southeast Asia with my sister. And those of you that just joined, you're going to notice I'm pausing and the emotions are very intense because this was super traumatic. Like money ruled my life. And if you're experiencing stuff, like I know how you feel. Like I know how you feel. And like I'm going to help you because it's fucked up. Like it's so fucked up. And so I traveled Southeast Asia after I graduated college at UC Berkeley. And my sister and I went to like Australia, Southeast Asia, and it was like, it was amazing. And then again, like I mentioned, if you've been listening, I didn't really check my bank account because I didn't want to feel the feelings of shame and guilt. You're going to avoid like what you don't want to feel. So if something makes you feel uncomfortable, you're not going to do it. You're not going to date. You're not going to check your bank account. You're not going to like go after your dreams if it makes you feel like rejected or like whatever. So it's not your fault if you're not doing things that like you truly want to do. So I was scared to check my bank account. So I just avoided it. I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, I don't want to feel like shame, guilt. I just correlated shame and guilt with like money and bank account. And so I just ignored it, avoidant. So I was traveling Southeast Asia and 3 months ended. And then I went to North Carolina because I got a full-time offer after I graduated. The thing about me is I've always been like very ambitious, very driven, perfectionist, all of that. And in the past, it was coming from a place of like survival because my biggest fear had always been I'm going to lose everything because one day I was living in Foster City in this home. The next day, my family had to sell our home. And so I just had that big fear. And so I was like, I'm going to achieve, I'm going to be like performer, all this. So like I have control. And so I got a full-time job and I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina after I graduated. I was 22. This is really pivotal in the story. So pay attention and listen. And so I started this job at Cisco in tech sales. And I'm just remembering to breathe. I've just never shared any of this. It's just really intense. And so then I went to the neurologist because I've always had really bad migraines. And I remember walking in the neurologist and I had like a $25 copay, like a $25 copay. And the neurologist or like the admin or front desk was like, okay, like pay. And then I remember paying, or so I thought. I gave my debit card and they were like, hey, like you don't, like it's declined. And then I was like, what? Like, what are they talking about? And I was like, okay, like hold on. And then I remember like, I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but I remember just being flooded in like just so much, I can't even explain it, like anxiety or overwhelm or something. And so I felt so overwhelmed because I was like, shit, I need to check my bank account. And if you guys have been listening, checking my bank account gave me so much like shame and guilt and fear. So I did it. And guess what, guys? I literally found out that I had $7,000 in debt. And in this moment, I literally was like, how am I going to pay $25 for the neurologist appointment, the copay? And I literally had like $100 or something in my bank account. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so embarrassing. I'm literally going to lose everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. And so I remember calling my sister, the one that I went to Southeast Asia with. And I was like, Caroline, I don't know what to do. And then she was like, what? And in the past, like before I did all this healing work, my complex was like, I got really angry. I got really frustrated. I got really angry. Anger is a mask emotion for sadness, or like what you're unwilling to feel, but typically it's sadness. And so I remember calling her and I was like, Caroline, like the neurologist said, like, I can't, like, they can't accept my card. Like, and I was just really angry because like deep down, I had like deep sadness. And then she was like, okay, like, what do you need? Like, I'm happy to help you. And I was like too prideful to say to her, I need $25. And I was like, I don't know what I need. Like, honestly, like, screw it. Like, I don't need anything. And she like could see right through it. Like, she could see I had like deep sadness. And then finally she was like, I just need to stay hydrated. And like, this is just very deep to share. She finally was like, hey, I can like lend you $500. It's fine. And I was like, no, like, I don't need $500. Like, no. And I just, again, in that moment, all the shame and guilt came back. And it reminded me of my family and them losing the home and everything I experienced in that moment. And finally, like, we continued the conversation and she's like, Paige, like, swallow your pride. Like, it's okay. Like, she was comforting me. And then finally I just broke down in tears because like I couldn't escape it. Like, what was I going to do? Like, I needed to see the neurologist because I used to get bad migraines. And so she lent me $500. And then I, went on and continued, like, I became a super workaholic, like super. I started living in severe scarcity, survival. And I thought, like, if I can control, then I won't lose like everything. Because if you have been listening since the beginning of this story, losing everything became my biggest fear, like since my family lost our home. And so I was like a workaholic. I was like achieving. I was like crushing it. I was like, if I'm a top performer in all of this, then like nothing bad will ever happen to me. I'll never have money problems. I'll never have to deal with shame and guilt, because I correlated losing everything with like dying. And like dying to me was like shame and guilt, like something so intense. And so I kept working hard, and there was some like positive to it in the sense of like I achieved well, I had great success, but the negative was I was always in survival mode. I was always pushing myself beyond limits like that were just not sustainable, and it was not coming from a healthy place. And after that, continued working, I ended up getting into a romantic relationship and dated someone for 6 years. And this is a really heavy part of the story. I'm just like breathing because this is all just very vulnerable, and vulnerability used to never, ever be in my dictionary. But I got into a relationship with someone, and we dated for 6 years. And towards the end of our relationship, the last 6 months, he lied about his finances. And he ended up having debt. And I can't even tell you how much this stung. I'm past it now, but it completely put me into a spiral of when I was 18, when my family had to sell our home because financially we could no longer afford it. And it was the most pain I've ever experienced in my entire life. And it wasn't like, of course, it was like heartbreak. Like, that was really painful. But what was like even more intense was like the financial betrayal and like the feeling of losing everything, and what I felt when I was 18 and feeling like it was my fault, and like the shame and the guilt, and it hurt so bad. I can't even explain to you that pain, and I hope you never have to go through something like that. Not just, I'm not talking about just heartbreak. I'm talking about like feeling like you've lost everything, feeling like you're a failure, feeling like something is out of your control. And I'm not talking about out of your control like, oh, you have to like move to a new city, like something so deep. I can't even put it into words. And so it brought me back to the childhood experience and my family losing our home and all of that. And a few days later, I woke up and my body, like specifically my hands and my like arms up until my elbow, had severe physical pain. Like I had nerve pain. I couldn't open a water bottle and I had no idea what was going on. I was so scared. And what I learned is it was nerve pain. And what I've come to realize being on this healing journey and like now being super tapped into my body and being more like holistic and energy and like Eastern type stuff is emotional pain manifests into physical if you don't feel it. And during that time 3 years ago, it was the hardest time of my entire life. Like I've never experienced pain on that level in my entire life. And it was so hard to face. And so I share all of this and the story kind of continues, but I share all of this because whether you're watching this on Instagram Live, which I see some of you, thanks for staying on, or you're on my podcast or wherever you're at, the amount of pain I went through because of money or the fear of losing everything, the shame and guilt I was drowning in, me being a prisoner to my corporate job, me staying caged because I was so scared that I wouldn't have stability. I was so scared I wouldn't have security. I was literally a workaholic working 10 to 12-hour days. I was so scared to spend money because of this deep-rooted fear within me. Scarcity, a scarcity program. And you know what? After all this shit happened, all this shit, a year later, I got into another relationship. And guess what happened? I got betrayed again. And it brought back the same feelings of shame and guilt. And after that, I was so fucking pissed off, so angry. It brought me back to when I was 18, when my family lost our home, me feeling responsible, me having so much shame and guilt. And like you can feel like me in tears because wherever you're at in your journey, if you're struggling financially, I'm going to help you. I literally am committing my mission to make you a self-made millionaire. And I'm not fucking joking. I'm fucking dead serious. I'm creating a community of self-made millionaires because I know how it feels to be stuck in shame and guilt, to be stuck in a place where you feel like you're caged to your corporate job. You feel like you're caged to your partner that you don't want to fucking be with. You feel like you're caged to a life that doesn't make you lit up. You feel like you're caged to scarcity. Fuck that. Fuck that. And like, I'm so passionate about this because like, after my family lost our home, like, I felt responsible. I was so embarrassed. I was so shameful, so guilty. I became a workaholic because I was like, I don't want this to happen to me. So like, I need to like hold on. I need to control because if I don't control, then I'm not going to have money. And if I'm not going to have money, then I'm going to lose everything. And if I lose everything, then I'm going to have shame and guilt. And if I have shame and guilt, then I'm going to die because having shame and guilt, I'd rather die because it's the worst feeling in the entire world. And I don't want to feel like the worst feeling in the entire world. Guys, it's not like, oh, I just have some anxiety. Like when my family lost our home, I can't even explain to you the feeling in my body. It's not like, oh, I just like had some anxiety. No, it felt like death. I correlate it to death. And so after all of that, dating someone else who lied about their finances for 6 months, and this person's a great person. This story is not a pity story. I hope whether you're on the Instagram Live or podcast, wherever you're at, I hope what you take away from this story is me how I am going to help you get wealth. And if you are struggling, you are not fucking alone. You are not. And it's okay to have shame. It's okay to have guilt. It's okay to feel like shit. It's okay to be embarrassed. It's okay to be any of that. It's okay. And it's okay to sometimes be like playing the victim. It's all okay. And after I got out of the relationship where he lied about his finances and it really brought me back to my 18-year-old self, I got in another relationship. That person betrayed me. And after that, I was like, you know what? I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. And then finally I was like, you know what? There's nowhere to run. There's literally nowhere to run except myself. The only option that I have is to commit to myself. And initially, I'm not going to lie, I was partying a little bit. I was going to move to New York City and I was trying to figure things out. And I was like, why does this keep happening? Like, I just feel like I've been through so much. The past 3 years were like so tough. And then finally, I was like, you know what? I got to bet on myself. I got to go all in on myself. I got to create an unshakable connection with myself. I have to go all in. I'm the common denominator in all of this. And if I don't choose differently, nothing's going to change. It's not my fault that my family had to sell our home when I was 18. It's not my fault that I had a lot of shame and guilt. It's not my fault, but I can choose differently today. So I literally was like, you know what? I am going to go all in on myself. I'm going to do so much fucking healing work. I'm going to do everything I can. And not from a place of like scarcity, but from a place of abundance. And guys, guess what? Guess what? I manifested $1 million! Yeah. And guess what? The craziest part is I never sought out to manifest $1 million. I sought out to be the best version of myself. I was like, I'm tired of guys betraying me. I'm tired of feeling shame and guilt for like what happened when I was 18, when my family lost our home. I'm tired of being a prisoner to these scarcity programs where you need to slave away. You need to work more to receive money. Fuck that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the best version of myself. I'm going to let go. I'm over being a workaholic and I'm just going to like really commit to myself. I'm over numbing myself with partying. I'm over hanging out with people that don't make me feel supported or like loved or accepted for my true authentic self. And I'm over it all. So I'm going to shine. I'm going to do me, be me, and I'm going to commit to being the best version of myself. And nothing else. I'm going to just like show up for me. And guess what happens? I manifested $1 million. Like, you guys, I'm not going to sit here and feed you bullshit. I'm sick and tired of seeing people online where they're like, follow these 3 simple tactics and you'll get $1 million. No, guys, this is not bullshit city. This is literally straight up. This is literally you leaning into your authentic self. This is you fucking releasing shame and guilt. This is you fucking believing in yourself. Like, you know, everyone, like, I'm just like sick and tired of like, literally just people not being themselves, people not believing in themselves. I quit my job that I received 7 figures. I manifested $1 million so I can literally do this full time. Do you really think that I would literally take this leap of faith if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't want to make an impact? I'm sitting on this live because I went through so much fucking pain. I can't even explain to you, like, today, earlier when I was thinking about recording this, like coming on Instagram Live, I'm very intuitively led. Like I didn't sit down and like plan all this out. Literally around noon, I was like, wait, I feel like I should share my money story because I don't want to be that person that's like, I manifested $1 million. Look at me. Like, no, I want it to be from my heart of like, my family lost our home. I literally was betrayed and lied to about like his finances, this and that. Like I want to speak from my heart. And I want other people to know they can do it as well. And I want to create like a space where people can be their authentic self. And that's why I'm building this community of self-made millionaires. And the way you're going to be a self-made millionaire is a few things. Number 1, you need to believe in yourself. Number 2, you need to bet on yourself. Number 3, you need to commit and invest in yourself. I have a program, Unshakable You. You can join it. Early bird ends in like 5 hours, so you can save $555 and you can join the community. So it's my life mission to help people become self-made millionaires. I know how badly, like, it rules people's lives, money, and it's outsourcing your power. If you join my live yesterday, you can go back on my Instagram and look, or you can go to my podcast or YouTube to check that out. But when you let money rule your life, you are outsourcing your power. You're giving your power away. And like, you need to be rooted in who you are. You are safe. You are secure. You have the power. Money doesn't control you. And after I built an unshakable connection with myself, yes, I've been able to manifest $1 million. Yes, I've been able to manifest 50K in 1 month. Yes, I've been able to manifest 30K in 4 days, 6K in a few days. Like, it's endless. The abundance is endless. And I'm like grateful. But what I'm more proud of is helping other people do it. Like, the more abundance I receive, the more I'm going to help you do it and more. It's not exciting for me to sit over here and be like, hey guys, guess what I did? No, because I know how it feels to be struggling. I know how it feels to have fear. I know how it feels to live in scarcity programs that are literally programmed within you. But it's up to you to bet on yourself and to decide, I'm no longer going to subscribe to these scarcity programs. It's literally a program that you have subscribed to. And so you can decide. But like I mentioned in the beginning, when I was 18, this traumatic event happened to me. And then throughout my life, different experiences brought me back to it. Whether it was when I was 22 with the debt, or the relationship, or the other relationship. And then finally I decided, enough is enough. I can't let this rule my world. And I remember I was talking to my brother one day. I'm just drinking some to ground me and stay in my body. But I remember I was talking to my brother one day, and he was like, yeah, so what are you going to do? Are you going to just continue working? And because him and I both worked a lot. And I just remember thinking to myself, what kind of life is this? I was caged to my corporate job, and I really loved it. I did like it. I did. But to be completely honest with you, to be in a state where you need a job to feel safe and you're so fearful and scared of money, that is outsourcing your power. That is not rooted in who you are. And until you feel rooted and secure and safe within yourself, you're going to continuously chase money. And if you have been listening since the beginning of this episode, you notice tears in my eyes. Because I know how it feels to struggle with money. I know how it feels. And I never want to be that person that's like, look at me, it just manifested. Look, it's cool to be able to manifest money super easily. I can receive money very, very easily. And it's great. But you know what I'm most proud of? I'm most proud of releasing shame and guilt that kept me stuck for so, so long. It was so horrible. And I don't want anyone ever to experience this. And the power is in your hands. You need to be able to commit to yourself. And the only way you're going to be able to get wealth is if you face the parts of yourself that you're unwilling to face and unwilling to feel. Manifestation and receiving wealth, I'm going to say it again like I said it in the beginning. It's not this recite 3 affirmations, close your eyes, and money just falls from the sky. If it was that simple, you would have already received it. So I'm calling bullshit on the internet. I'm calling bullshit, wherever else. If you are committed to yourself, if you know your greatness, if you know in your soul you're meant to make a massive freaking impact in the world, then come join the community I'm building, where I'm going to help you become a self-made millionaire. This is my mission in the world, and I would love to help you. Only if you're committed to yourself and you're willing to do the work, because this is not a quick fix thing, but I'm going to help you get there. Thank you so much for listening to this and just, allowing me to share my rawness, my vulnerability, and I'm sending you so much love, and know you are never alone. Bet on yourself.